Alright, so today we'll watch this video by Blargis. So go check out his channel and this video. So yeah, let's get started.
Just over a year ago, I made this video, which shows off a simple prototype for a tiny game that I just started with the Godot game engine. 1200 commits.
Like the art style, PSX to pixelated art style is a very amazing art style for Godot, especially because it does not have a very good render pipeline for 3D high definition like pipeline for 3D strong realistic games. So it's a good choice.
25,000 lines of code, and over a year of work later, well, let's just say the guy talking in that video is a naive baby that has no idea what he's getting himself.
Of course, 1 year of learning, whenever you are learning for like real and learning at most like 6-5 hours a day, 1 year is a lot. You will think yourself as the stupidest guy ever to be born in this universe after 1 year, and it's okay. This is a good thing to feel because it means you are developing
Into. In this past year, a lot of crazy stuff went down. Over 20,000 people have play tested my game, and I've turned that little prototype into something that is really starting to.
That's amazing. That's almost that's past like the 0.5 0.10 percentage of indie games that are published on Steam.
I feel like a fully featured game. And because Blargis of the past did such a good job making devlogs documenting the whole process, present day Blargis has lots of fun then versus now content to show off. And since this has turned into such a massive project, I think it'll be fun to dive in and show off what a really big long-term Godot project looks like, and discuss how I'm feeling about my decision to go with Godot instead of, one of the more mainstream engines.
Yeah, that's something I really want to hear about. I made a full commercial games and worked in full commercial games, AAA, AA, and in both Unreal and Unity, but I never used Godot in a commercial game, only in like testing and prototyping. I've never used it for a commercial game, so this would be a very informative and nice detail.
So that's what this video is. A recap of all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into taking this simple prototype and turning it into what it is now. Alright, so in the past year, I think the development process I've gone through can be broken up into 3 distinct phases. Getting something playable, finding the fun, and then production and polish, which is basically the phase I'm in right now and probably will be in for a very long time. So starting with
that's important. The first thing you should do, like the core mechanics, or what we call sometimes as the vertical slice. Then you do the content, the whole content. Then it's depend on your game. For a PSX style game and the style he's going for, visuals do not like cost a lot of time, but if you were like working on a very high-end 3D hyper-realistic game, visuals should be in production, not in post-production. So yeah, but that's amazing for the style of the game that he is doing.
Getting something playable. The original vision for Blood Thief was a mix between Quake and Hotline Miami, but in kind of a spooky, dark fantasy type setting. So in the past, I would do this thing where I'd work for months and months on a project, and then like a year in, I would realize, wait, this is terrible. And so I knew from the get-go I wanted to do this one differently. This one, I was going to try to get a working prototype up and running as quickly as possible, just so I could see sooner if there was a nugget of something good, and then I would have something to iterate on, and feasibly I could release.
Just delete the project. Just don't go and try to defend it against yourself, like, no, it's a good project. If it's bad, if you saw it's bad after you did like the demo or the vertical slice, just neglect it, go and make another project. It's okay. We do it a lot, and even companies do it a lot. Every professional guy, if he saw that the prototype is not good, he just neglect it, go make the amazing next thing.
Which that's basically the goal for this game, is to really.
It's of course depressing, because you probably spent hours, did not sleep for nights, and even some people neglect their health and a good moments with their families or friends just to make a simple prototype. But if it was bad, don't continue wasting more time. Just go and produce another one.
games to release it. Okay, so what's the minimum amount of stuff this game needs just so I have something to play? The way I see it, that just
it's a player movement, some anime AI, some platforming, testing, some game managers, some core mechanics, other core mechanics. I saw like he has a smash thing or a dash, maybe wall running, the most of stuff in player controls and player stats. Game manager, sound manager, maybe 2 soundtracks, maybe not, it depends. Trying to do some GUI, trying to make a boss fight if he has one, or if he was like a time score game. I think his game is like that. He makes like 2 to 3 levels with different ideas, and yeah, that's enough.
just means a player character that I can control, an enemy for me to fight, and a level for this to all happen in. So I basically grabbed the Godot default script for the character controller. I made like the worst, ugliest player model the world has ever seen, and I made like these absolutely terrible animations for him. And then I made this knight character, which actually is pretty good, at least for my typical standards. That's using Mixamo animations and his AI.
Details matter, but not that much in PSX or 3D pixelated games, because the motion blur and the motion of the camera covers many details, unless if it was like a realistic or mid, even low poly, mid poly, low poly, high poly, it's all gonna pop out in the camera, even if there was a motion blur and stuff like that. But in PSX games and pixel art games, you can like pass through 1 or 2 bad detailing. It's super okay.
Is just to like run straight at you basically, and guess what, that's exactly what's still in the game now. So good job, Blargis of 2023. For the level, I did exactly what you're not supposed to do, which is instead of just throwing together something simple that has a start and an end, I've made this absolutely absurd geometry node system that was supposed to be this awesome dungeon generation.
And don't do that in your vertical slicer prototype. This is too much over engineering, and you probably, when you are starting to produce the full game, you will throw it out and start making another one.
A thing that would make it so I could just pump out levels like crazy, and it was super ambitious. And guess what, I ended up throwing all that away. So let this be a lesson that in the prototyping phase, keep it simple. So yeah, what I ended up with was just like a couple cubes basically with torches and doors and stuff, but hey, it was made with cool geometry nodes, so be impressed. So at the time, this was really exciting for me. I had a really bad game, but it was a game and it was playable. And kind of like how I alluded to before, I had something that I could iterate on now. And so that brings me to my next part of this video, which is finding fun. So one thing that I felt would make the game more fun is just to make it more challenging. And the next thing I did was make a variation of the knight that had a bow and arrow, which really...
Sometimes it's even in the visual effects and the audio effects. For example, see Doom. Killing enemies in Doom is nice, and you have techniques and different systems and different like weapons upgrades, different weapons, different types like melee attacks. The arena is like very well designed. But one simple thing that I always remember from Doom Eternal is when the enemy is low, he starts glowing and you can go and slash him up, or like break him with your hands, which goes perfectly with their idea of making a gore game. And it's amazing. It's amazing design. It makes the game a whole lot more fun. So yeah, sometimes visual effects also make fun. Fun is very hard to like explain why people have fun. So don't call it in your prototype or GDD fun. Call it like core gameplay loop, or core mechanics, or maybe all game mechanics, because it's a very foggy naming for yourself to put it on your targets while making the game.
Did a lot for making the game more challenging, because now you actually had this fast moving projectile that you had to dodge, and you couldn't just run straight at the knights anymore. But what about this default character controller that I'd basically been using since day one? Like I said earlier, I wanted this game to be a lot like Quake, and in case you didn't know, Quake's got like the best movement ever. So I basically did a bunch of research on how Quake's movement works and modified Blood Thief's movement to just basically feel like Quake's movement. Which at the time I was like, wow, this feels exactly like Quake's movement. But now that I'm watching this back, I just was not there yet. But hey, we were starting to get somewhere. So one of the other inspirations for Blood Thief is Hotline Miami, which is like extremely fast paced. So the other big thing that I did was I just cranked that movement speed way up. So basically Quake's ultra fast movement, but faster.
Zing and pep. See, those are the kind of words we're looking for. Yes, Jim.
What about if we did an even newer voicemail message that had even more zing and pep?
Now we're cooking.
It's okay. The most important part is to make the game fun. Most of the games are based on older games, and this is okay. Human does it all the time. It's a collective knowledge. Something, it's just like now we use fire, not because the caveman used fire. It means we should not use fire to produce a higher quality games, for example, or products. So it's okay to base your game on old ideas. It's super okay. The most important is a license, of course, for legal purposes, and if you like try to make the same exact game with the same branding and name, that would be illegal. But like taking an idea or a core mechanic from that game and implementing it in your game and putting your own visuals and other core mechanics would make the game good. So it's okay, you can do that.
Also, as I alluded to earlier, the game was just too simple and there was a notable lack of skill expression in the game. The thing about Hotline Miami is that the combat mechanics are really simple. The main way you express skill in that game is by how you move through the space. I wanted Blood Thief to be like Hotline Miami and that movement was going to be paramount. But I was finding that just running around and slapping enemies with your sword in kind of the Hotline Miami style just didn't feel like it provided the player enough skill expression to make the game interesting. So it was at this point that I added wall running and sliding to the game, which now is making the game feel a lot like Quake plus Hotline.
Important for like platforming in such a game. Linear leveled games is important, and wall run and sliding adds a whole ton of new ideas for level design.
Miami plus Titanfall. It also was really
Even speedrunners might use it for glitches. Leave some glitches for speedrunners so like they can crouch maybe in a weird way and go faster and stuff like that, even if you implemented it yourself in code, just because it makes the game more interesting. For example, Celeste did it in their 2D platformer game. It's a very amazing idea.
Miami plus Titanfall. It also was really starting to sound like Ghost Runner, which definitely entered my radar around this point. And I saw the similarities as a good thing because I played it and it's freaking amazing. And now, because I'd done a smart thing in getting the full gameplay loop set up in the beginning, the magic was starting to happen. I was starting to get that feeling of like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if I could do this? For example, when I slid into the knights, nothing happened, and it was like, oh, I should be able to knock the knights over. Wouldn't that be cool? And then the air dash came about because I was finding myself wanting to do these aerial attacks on the knights and just having a really hard time. So I made an attack where you could just kind of shoot at them like a heat-seeking missile. And then with
so fun, as he says, to the game, because it will make it's a cool idea that will make people want to experiment with the walls more. Can I hit him if I go to that wall? It's an idea that are put inside the head of the person who is playing the game, which will make the level bigger to him in his mind on the ways that he can play it.
With all these new movement mechanics, it was way easier to come up with interesting level layouts and ideas because now I just had to think about sections that would encourage the player to use some of these new mechanics. It was at this point that I started using Trench Broom to make Blood Thief's levels, which I'll talk a little bit more about later in the video. So yeah, things were moving and it felt like I was making a lot of progress. But I stayed in this phase where I was basically just in my cave silently making this game by myself for way too long. I mean, if we look at my devlogs, I released that first devlog back in July 2023, and it wasn't until October 2023 where I actually started showing the game to people and playtesting.
The sensitivities.
It's a lot of time, but that's only if he was like working on it full time. If he was working with it and he had a full-time job or a college, it's super okay. Don't stress yourself. 1 year is nothing. But if you are working full-time on your game and that happened, no, that's bad. That's too bad.
Through the Roof.
Yeah, sorry.
Can I turn it down?
No.
Can you even come in here? Bro, I can just use shift as like an ultimate shield. But it's like, oh.
You will be a bit shocked the first time people will play your game. They will find glitches, areas they should not be supposed to go through. They will don't know where the place they should go to. But these are all very, very important points on your game. It means the level design is not right. It means maybe the visual colors of the attracted objects that the player should look at are bad. For example, many notices you had to make, and you will have the worst thing ever, the bug list, 100 to 120 bugs. The first 3-4 players will play your game.
This is so intense. Oh my god, I obliterated him. Oh no. Oh god. Yes!
So that was just an initial playtest that I did with some of my close friends, but it was soon after that that I opened up Blood Thief to the broader community using Steam's playtest feature. When I started playtesting, I was still in the find the fun phase of my design process, and so it was when I started playtesting that I more than doubled Blood Thief's movement kit. Over the course of the next few months, I added the parry, the ledge climb, and the ledge vault, the crouch, which, don't be deceived, is a surprisingly deep and fun mechanic, and the ground slam, as well as the ground slam bounce. I also
climb is important too. Many speedrunners also might use it, and it will so for some reason ledge climb make players think the game are like worked on a bit more, because there is a bit of more attention to details.
Which, don't be deceived, is a surprisingly deep and fun mechanic, and the ground slam as well as the ground slam bounce. I also
the ground slam and the bounce and the sound effect, it's satisfying to do, to be honest. So keep that. It's very
find things like the air dash quite a bit and turn it into something that was actually fun to play, which is what I talked all about in my last devlog. And so now this game that started out as Quake plus Hotline Miami is starting to kind of feel like Quake plus Hotline Miami plus Ultra Kill plus Ghost Runner plus Titanfall, which, I mean, dude.
Okay, many references. It's super okay. Many references, which makes up a very new coming game. It's the normal thing to happen.
Dude, I'm liking how this sounds. But perhaps most importantly, throughout playtesting, I was able to identify exactly what Blood Thief's core gameplay loop.
Being distracted from your main idea, it's just like your main idea is now more complicated. It's not just a copy of a game or a copy of a mechanic of a game. It's now its own mechanics. Its own mechanics by a hybrid approach of multiple games and core mechanics of them. So this is a good indicator, to be honest.
What I realized was that while it's fun to explore the level for the first time, fight enemies, and just get through challenges without dying, through playtesting I found a super fun metagame that I'd been missing was getting through the level as quickly as possible. In other words, when you get really good at Blood Thief, figuring out where the shortcuts in the level are, finding the fastest way to kill all the enemies, and mastering the movement mechanics so you can build and maintain speed are all really fun ways to make the game fun on a deeper level for hardcore players. And so in observing this in playtests, that's how things like the leaderboards and medals got added to the game. And with those additions, it started to feel like a little bit of neon white was getting added to this mix here, which also is kind of amazing because neon white fucking rules. So this exploratory phase of development was so enjoyable for me that I probably could have stayed in it forever.
Destructibles, yeah, destructibles for this game. Too many of them. Too many of interacted objects with this sort. It will make players feel like the attention of detail of this game is going skyrocketing. So yeah, keep that in mind.
But it had become very clear to me that I had honed in on a gameplay loop that was really fun.
In every mind of any person, destroying something is fun.
And so if I wanted any hope of finishing this game in the next decade, I had to kind of stick my feet in the sand and decide that this was the rough gameplay loop.
Let's overcomplicate the graphics. Your graphics right now is amazing for your style. It's an amazing graphics for your artist style. Maybe it needs more props, but it's amazing, like in maybe some light work, like this light is a bit bad, but it's an amazing art style.
I'm settling on no more mechanics, no more scope creep.
This one, why this one did not have a light? That's bad. This one should have a light, and it should be obvious And yeah.
I'm moving on. And so that brings me to the phase of development that I'm currently in now, which I don't know, probably has an official name. I'm calling it production and polish. Essentially, at this point, I have Blood Thief's mechanics largely locked in.
There is some people do polish, but production and polish at the same time would be weird. It's if you are trying to build a community with your game, yeah, you can do a hybrid approach. So
I have Blood Thief's mechanics largely locked in. What my focus is now is on squeezing as much juice in as many creative ways as I can out of the mechanics that I've set out. Basically through a variety of challenges, levels, and enemies. None of which I can really talk about right now because that would...
he gets with the game like a crossbow or something to add more mechanics for the game, to make it complicated more with time. The player wants to have new things to try in the game, and not learn everything at once, so he don't get overwhelmed. Just he gets it little by little, and then he gets like 10 challenges by these things that he learned, then something new unlocked and stuff like that.
Kind of spoil the whole game. The other aspect of this phase that I can't...
Maybe a new sword or something like that, or a crossbow, or yeah.
Can talk about is just adding a layer of refinement to stuff to make it, you know, as fun and enjoyable as possible. And when I say level of refinement, I basically mean replacing my...
See, the castle is amazing, the sky is amazing, the UI is amazing, this thing is amazing, but this is too empty. Too empty.
My buggy ass code with code that actually works, and replacing my programmer art with slightly better programmer art. As for refining the code, it's so funny how a 100-line prototype can get you like 90% of what you want with just a little bit of jank, but getting that last 10% requires like a billion lines of code. One place where this is definitely true is with stairs in Blood Thief. Stairs are kind of famously terrible in video games, and Blood Thief is definitely no exception. You can think of Blood Thief's player character as basically a Roomba with arms, and as we all know, Roombas and stairs do not play nice. At first I basically got around this by putting little invisible ramps behind all the staircases in the game, because Roombas can go up ramps. But I quickly started to lose my mind, putting little tiny ramps over every single little detail that the player could get caught on. So I actually had to implement a surprisingly complex routine to basically detect if you're about to hit a stair and gracefully move you up and over it. If you've ever heard of the open source project Godot...
To me, I do, when he detects that it's a ladder, I do the approach that he left before, automatically by a code, and we just tag it. I don't know if that's available on Godot, or it would cause like memory loss more. I don't know if they have like garbage control and stuff like that, so yeah.
Godot stairs, I'm basically using that approach. I'll link that in the description if you happen to have an infatuation with stairs. Another piece of infrastructure that started to explode in complexity as I started to add polish was Blood Thief's restart code. In the original version of Blood Thief, I was literally just reloading the entire level every time the player hit restart. This actually wasn't too bad. For me, it was like a 2-second stutter every time you hit the restart button. But Blood Thief is the type of game...
Oh no. Don't do that. Some people will have problems because of shader compilation, because of they use different device. Maybe your device is too strong. So yeah, it's a BSX game, not a AAA hyper-realistic game. So some people will play it on a very bad devices,
where you could die like 50 times in a level. And I just think that 2 seconds of wait time is just too long for a game like that. Funny enough, it's just short enough to not be overtly obnoxious. For example, like players weren't really complaining about it in feedback, but I think it's just long enough to slowly chisel away at your sanity in such a way that you don't even realize
it's not only if they complain, you mean you need to fix it. That's wrong. Sometimes you need to fix it just to make them feel better about the game. Not just, oh yeah, it's fixed. No, it's fixed and it's good in quality. That's why you sometimes need to fix things that they did not complain about.
It's happening, kind of like a leaky faucet that just drips every once in a while. I don't know why, it kind of just felt like I had a moral responsibility to reduce this loading time. Maybe that's just my software engineer coming out. So I redid the restart system to only restart the stuff that actually needs to be restarted. which is so much faster. Like, it's literally instant now. But this created like a billion edge cases, and now everything needs to know if it's the type of thing that should be restarted or not. So there's a whole bunch of like nasty race conditions and edge cases, and I turned my little one-liner prototype into an extremely bugged.
This thing should be developed in the game manager from the start of the game, so you always know you need to call it in that like script and that new script and that new script, so you do not you get like stunned in the face. Oh, I forgot to do that core mechanic, and that's why we call it core, and you need now to re-implement it in every single code you did.
Prone piece of infrastructure that I now have to think about for every single new thing I add to the game. But on the other hand, restart is like a billion times faster now, and so I'm still glad I did it.
Just working hard so I can please you.
And what about me turning my programmer art into something that just hopefully doesn't look so much like programmer art? Well, for that, I'm just gonna say that I'm learning and I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to leverage my programming skills by making cool looking shaders like this sky shader I made that is...
My like advice for you is learn how to do level design art. Like for example, the volume distribution on the objects and how to make an object stand out more without clearing the area just like you did before. So that would be the best advice. Plus study about how lightning managers, the people that manage light and direct light, do it in video game industry and film industry.
It was heavily inspired by Quake Sky. About a year in, I finally redid that terrible player model that I showed off in the beginning. Check it out, now we got fingers. And because I'm an idiot, I still haven't rigged the fingers for this player model. I literally modeled his hand in the closed position with the sword just being shoved into the player's hand like Squidward's jellyfishing net. In last video, someone suggested that I add little emotes like the player flipping their sword up in the air when they're idle. Hey man, that would require rigging the fingers, so it's looking kind of out of the question at this point. Unless we come up with some emotes that don't require opening the player's fist, like maybe he can just shake his fist angrily at the enemies or something like that. Oh yeah, and as for those hilariously jank animations I talked about in the beginning, those haven't changed. An A-sprite. Some textures are just sourced from textures.com, where I pull them into Photoshop to make them look a little bit more blood thiefy. And I've actually started using Substance Painter for a few assets now, which, you know, I'm just learning. So if you're a real artist and you're looking at this, please don't make fun of me. And yeah, I think the art's at a point now where I'm actually feeling pretty good about it. I think part of being a game dev is just accepting what your strengths are, playing to your strengths, and
Substance Painter is very good for this thing. So yeah, keep on you
doing the best you can with the other stuff. Okay, so that's basically everything that I've worked on this year, but I mentioned in the beginning of this video that I was going to talk a little bit about just what a sizable Godot project.
It's okay. Play your strength. Your weak points will show, no matter how much you are trying to hide them. For example, let's say you are a boxer and you do a very good jab, but your leg work is bad. You cannot really do a very good leg work, so you cannot evade much of the opponent's box style, especially if he was like long range. But because you have a very good jab and you are good, for example, at close range, so you always go and play with your jab and with your close range, he will start trying to evade your goods, the jab and the close style, and not think too aggressive on you being bad at leg work. So the players will see too, if your strong point were art and your code was simple, let's say a walking simulator, they will focus on the art first. And when they are finished, they'll say, yeah, and it should have a bit better game mechanic. Why? Because you played on your strong point more, so it would make the game better. Way better.
Looks like. So here we go. So Blood Thief's currently using Godot 4.2.2. When I first started Blood Thief, I was using Godot 4.0, which means I successfully managed to upgrade it twice, once from 4.0 to 4.1, and again from 4.1 to 4.2. And oh, would you look at that? Godot 4.3 just came out, so I'll definitely be upgrading to that too, because Godot 4.3 has a ton of features and fixes that I'm just really excited about.
Do that in like Unity or Unreal, it makes a lot of problems, especially in very big games. I just continue producing in my version.
So I was kind of shocked to see this. The project has 257 GD script files and 195 scene files. 67 of the GD script files and 10 of those scene files come from plugins, so not all of it is me. So if you're anything like me, you might be thinking, this project isn't that complicated. How the hell did he manage to write 256 GD script files? And as I look through all these, it starts to make sense. There's just a lot of random crap that you need to make a game.
If you don't need the plugin scenes, remove them. They are just too much cache and memory.
Game like this work. A whole lot of these are UI, which I haven't even really talked much about yet. And this is hilarious because Blood Thief's UI is like as minimalistic as it gets, and it's a
you need a lot of codes. That's totally okay. And of course, you need to make he need to optimize it well. He can reduce this count to even 127.
huge portion of the complexity of this project. I also use a lot of the entity component design pattern in Blood Thief, so a single entity like a knight, for example, has literally 18 scripts on it, with all these scripts being pretty tiny, so 256, not as big as it sounds. At a high level, I've got 4 key external integrations that Godot works pretty seamlessly with. So I've got Fmod, Trench Broom, Jolt Physics, and Blender. In a nutshell, Fmod is just really good for making dynamic music and sound effects. It's what I'm using.
Reduced again. It's good, but you can't reduce.
For basically all my sound effects for Blood Thief. For example, I have this song by Occam's Laser, and I want to make sure that the intensity of the song cranks up at exactly the right moment in the game. So I've got these intensity regions set up in the level.
Me, I use a mix of FL Studio, Adobe Edition, and WWise, as I mentioned it before. It's a good combination.
And when I enter that region, the song will seamlessly transition to the more intense part. You set up all this logic in Fmod, and it's actually a pretty easy tool to learn. I really recommend this for anybody who's interested in this type of thing because it's a lot of fun. I recently migrated all Blood Thief sounds to Fmod because it just has basically every feature you could possibly want when it comes to sound. Like, for example, I have a bunch of different footstep sounds, and in Fmod you can really easily set up a random selector for all those sound effects. This is something I would have had to write a bunch of code for before, and now it's just like super easy to set up. By the way, I'm not sponsored by Fmod or anything, I just like it. The other big tool/integration that I'm using in this project is Trench Broom, which is what I'm using to make the maps for Blood Thief. Trench Broom is really popular in the Quake mapping community, which is basically how I found out about it. In short, Trench Broom allows you to not only do the modeling and texturing for your maps, but it also allows you to add entities to your map, like enemies, triggers, doors, and even define complex behaviors like making all these things interact with each other. And you do all this in Trench Broom. The way I'm shoving my Trench Broom maps into Godot is with a plugin called Funk Godot, which by the way used to be called Quado if you've heard me talk about it before. The next integration I want to talk about is the Jolt Physics Engine. This plugin is literally just a drop-in replacement for Godot's default physics engine. I started using Jolt really early in Blood Thief's development because I kept getting caught in little cracks in my level geometry. I figured I'd try using Jolt, and the issue literally just went away. It's honestly one of those plugins that I just don't really have to think about, and isn't that just the best kind of plugin? Last but not least is Godot's Blender integration. My first ever YouTube video is a tutorial on how to set this up. A lot of people commented on that video that it's actually not that smart to use blend files directly in your Godot project, but honestly, if you're a small team, I'm not really convinced it's such a bad thing. For example, I found it really useful to be able to tweak animations in Blender and then immediately be able to see the change in game. So yeah,
No, it's bad. Only if you want to edit them too much memory, or only if you wanted to like put it for like a temporary amount of time and then remove it, because blend files could go to even 1 gigabyte. Do FBX or your own exporting format. For me, I use AC3D and a mix of FBX depending on how much quality I want. AC3D is something I made my own, and you can do that too. But if it was too complicated, just use STL, FBX, anything, but don't use .blend file. That's too much memory if you have like a 3D game.
It may not be best practice, but for me it's a useful feature. With that said, I do find myself just exporting my models to GLB more often than not nowadays, mainly just so I can use different versions of Blender and not break anything.
You should when you are done with the changes, just export it.
thing. I also found myself having lots of different versions of some assets, and only the final one actually gets exported to GLB and makes it into the Godot project. Okay, so I'd say that's a pretty good summary of the project as a whole. I don't really feel hampered with tech debt at this point. I mean, sometimes I'll come across an old script that I haven't touched in a while, and I'll see some scary shit that I wish I didn't, but that generally falls in line with my process for making new features, which is just do it in the dumbest, messiest way possible, and only later, once I've fully hashed out all the details and requirements of that feature, do I actually clean it up and refactor. Personally, I think that this is the best way to do things because nothing is worse than some giant, over-engineered piece of infrastructure that adds hundreds of lines of code solving problems that don't actually exist. And how about my decision to use Godot as a whole? This is definitely a loaded topic that I could probably do a dedicated video for, but overall, still feeling really good about using Godot, and I have absolutely no regrets. Sure, it can be pretty buggy at times, but feature-wise, it really has everything I need, and I just have so much fun using it. I'm finding that I'm able to bring ideas to reality really quickly with Godot, and as someone that overall is just trying to have a good time in life, I can't really ask for anything more. Maybe I'll make a more thorough video about that another time. Let me know in the comments if that'd be interesting to you. Alright, so that's basically my year.
I hope Godot gets to be a very competitive and like marketplace of game engines, because more competition means every single engine is getting better. And you can see that when Unreal released better and better versions, how Unity released Unity 6, and they're trying their best, so yeah.
Work summed up in a little video. It's been a lot of fun reflecting on all the things I've learned this year. As you can probably imagine, it's been a pretty crazy year for me. This channel has blown up way more than I ever could have imagined, so thank you to you for watching these videos. I love my life. I get to make games, and that's pretty incredible. So cheers to a year of game dev. To wrap things up, if you're interested in Blood Thief, give it a wishlist on Steam and join my Discord, because that's where I like to hang out and chat with people.
It's also just where you'll hear all the latest news for Blood Thief. And
that was a very amazing video. Of course, the link in the description, go check it out. And this is 10 months ago, by the way, so if you want to check his new updates, tell me please. And yeah, that's it for our video, and thanks for watching.